Retro Rewind. One-on-one.
Hey everybody, it's Dave Harris. We've decided to blow the dust off of our September 1st, 1999 interview with Julian Lennon that we did in Charleston, West Virginia, the last night of his 1999 tour. And we're talking to him about Photograph Smile. Now, a couple of things. This is what you would call a not-so-fancy disclaimer. I had a cold, Julian had a cold, and we recorded the interview on a what we call on radio a Marantz unit, a portable cassette player, basically. So the speeds of our voices are, as accurate as possible. But if it doesn't completely sound like either one of us, that's the reason. Both have colds, and it was recorded on a cassette. You have to work with what you have back then. We didn't have portable MP3 players or anything like that. So it's basically a take-it-or-leave-it moment. All right? Here's the interview in its entirety, all 26 minutes of it. It's Dave and Jules from 99. Dave Harris, Retro Rewind, my very special guest, Julian Lennon, on the last night of the tour. And Jules, I'd love to talk a little bit about your album, Photograph Smile, for as long as we have time here with you. You were pretty much on a musical sabbatical for a while, huh?
Yeah, it was a very slow process putting this album together because initially it wasn't writing for an album in particular. It was challenging myself to be the best that I could be, challenging my own worth as a songwriter. And so, actually, before even thinking about going into the studio doing any of that stuff, it was very much a question of having almost enough material for 2 or 3 albums before I started playing some ideas to friends and people. And it was only after I met up with Bob Rose and he said, well, why don't we just, run in the studio for 3 or 4 days, cut a couple of tracks and see how you feel. No pressure, no, you pay for the tapes, so you get to keep the tapes. No record company involvement, no management involvement. So it was very much just a question of going in, and within the first week we'd cut 11 tracks. Yeah. So it felt right and it felt good, and it was just a question of because it was not a scheduled album, we had not previously booked enough studio time to do albums worth. And so it was a question of after the first week was sitting back, reflecting, looking on the work, and wondering whether I was heading in the right direction with this, and at the same time looking for another studio as well to go and finish some more ideas, because as I said before, I had plenty of material. And so it was a slow process over a period of a year of just going in the studio for a month or so, then taking time out, listening to the work, deciding what would be best this time around for this particular album. And at the end of the year, it was knocking it down to 14 tracks worth that felt right for this particular album. And after that, it was, I played it to a couple of major labels, and there were some nice deals on the table, but after my past experience, I just decided that, I wasn't prepared to sell my soul to the devil for another 5-10 years of my life. So the only way forward that I saw was to start an indie label and be my own boss and just do it myself. That was the only way forward.
So are you happy with the end result?
You wouldn't be hearing it if I wasn't happy with it. Absolutely.
Well, I guess that makes sense, of course. So let me ask you this. Do you think or do you feel that you were taken advantage of by the music industry bigwigs back in the day?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They, as far as the industry were concerned, they were all very well and true and kind for the very first album, but after that it was not a question of what I wanted anymore out of music. It was how quickly they could get the work out, how they could sell me, basically. And obviously the easiest way forward was being the son of John, so it was nothing to do about my work and my art. It was all about image as far as they were concerned.
Well, I hate to steal a title from you, but it almost sounded like it was much too late for goodbyes.
Yeah, well, yes. Well, it was, it was a difficult 10 years in many respects, but I feel it was, in the end, it was actually worth it, because this time, for me, is absolute reality. There are no hidden agendas. It's, music has always been an art form and a craft to me, and being able to just put it out the way I envisaged it the first time around, it was like going to school. It was like 10 years of hard graft in school, working with these people that, it's the same old thing these days. It's a machine. It's not about music, which is very sad.
When did you decide to fight back your way?
Well, I guess I would have to say that after the work itself was written, a lot of my friends and people in the business that I knew and trusted and liked said, well, you can't just put this on the back shelf. You've got to do something with this. You'll regret it if you don't. And that would have been true in many respects, because with this album I've received the best reviews I've ever had in my life and my career. As far as supporting this album with this kind of fun tour we've been playing with, over the past 7 weeks in America, and some of the best live reviews that I've seen as well. So obviously doing something right this time around.
So now the goal was to control your own destiny. Has it been worth it? I mean, certainly it hasn't been an easy job.
No, it's a question these days of wearing very many more hats than I used to. Before it was just being able to sit down and write songs and record them and perform them, but these days a lot more decisions are put on my head. I mean, I'm basically the yes-no man. There are people that work for me that help me manage things and put things together, but the end result is a yes or no from me, basically.
Listening to this album, it seems that you've finally been able to move past your father's legacy. Do you finally feel free, or do you feel still that you're somewhat caught up in his shadow? I mean, it seems like you certainly have moved on.
I certainly moved beyond that a long time ago. I think there are a lot of people out there, whether they're the overly... what's the best way of putting it? Let me think. Give me 2 seconds. The thing that scares me out there a great deal is are the people that become too obsessive with other artists. And I think that the Beatles were a great band, an incredible band. They wrote some incredible songs. I think also that George Martin had a great deal to do with that. I think without him, they might not be the same band that they are, and also Dad's work too. But there's I've certainly learnt from my past, and I live for the future. I think a lot of people, unfortunately, are still stuck in the past in that respect, and think that the only way to surpass Dad or the Beatles is to have success. That's not correct. It's if one has to look at the work at hand. And for me, I feel that the work on this album at least equals some of the Beatles' work in its songwriting capabilities and arrangements, etc., etc. Other people deny that, refuse to believe that, but I have to disagree. Being a learned son of great songwriters, it's not a question of being modest. It's a question of I've worked many years in learning the trade of great songwriting from some of the best in the world, and I think I've done a pretty good job on this album. And for me, this is only the beginning,
Well, I can tell you right now, we're looking forward to the future, and these reviews for this latest CD are spot on. It's great. It's great.
Retro Rewind.